Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Greater Indiana Clean Cities first webinar of 2015. I'm Kelly Walsh, Executive Director of the Coalition. Today, we will be presenting on CNG fuel strategy and performance contracting. I would like to introduce to you now Energy Systems Group, Rick Doss and Mark Fallahy. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. This is Rick, and I want to thank you, first of all, for taking some time to spend part of your day with us to talk about CNG fueling strategies. Today, we're going to try to talk about a powerful lever that you can pull in an effort to advance a CNG fuel strategy. It's nothing new. It's a proven strategy. It's a combination financial and technical solution that's been used for nearly 20 years in the state of Indiana. What we're going to see today is a reflection of our experience, the research that we've done, and the conversations that we've had with some clients. We're hopeful that it proves of value to you. I promise that it will be worth at least as much as you paid for it. But we're going to invite you today to challenge us at the end. We've got some question and answer time, and we invite you to challenge us on our thinking. We believe it's the best way for all of us to get better at this. And so with that in mind, and another thank you to Clean Cities Coalition and to Kelly, we'll get started.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick. So we're going to try to do four things today. First, we want to frame the conversation by talking about performance contracting in Indiana, the big picture. We want to spend a few minutes talking about some of the reasons why a CNG fuel strategy makes sense. And we know Kelly's done a great job laying the foundation for all of us in terms of alternative fuels. So we're simply going to hit on some of the major highlights. Then we're going to get into how performance contracting can solve a number of the typical challenges to implementing a CNG fuel strategy. And then before we open it up for questions, we'll spend just a couple of minutes showing an example of how this approach could be transformational in communities in terms of impacting lowering costs, increasing revenue, and improving environment and enhancing quality of life in communities.
So before we talk specifically about fleet fuel strategy, let's do a little bit of a sanity check here. If you're in public service, then some days it's really got to feel like you're trying to do your job with one hand tied behind your back. You know, just when you've started to figure out how to adapt to life in a world post property tax caps, then you have to learn how to figure out this business personal property tax issue, that's kind of barreling down on you. So, so far in our careers anyway, we've yet to meet a public official who says their office is swamped trying to respond to residents requesting less frequent trash pickups, for example, or shutting down of Parks Department to help control cost. So if this list seems familiar to you and there's two or more of these things that are in your life, every day, then we believe that this idea of a comprehensive fuel strategy could really pay off for you. My dad used to tell me that if the only tool in my toolbox was a hammer, then all my problems would start to look like nails. I think he was telling me that I needed to find alternative ways to achieve my desired results. His corollary was there's more than one way to skin a cat. So the challenge that we see too often that our clients are facing is that they have too few tools available to do the things that make great economic sense for them. Too little capital, too much expense, and too many restrictions on how to fund improvements, both needed and desired. Performance contracting, when paired up with a fleet fuel strategy, could do all of these things for you. And what we hope to do today is kind of show you how that could work. In other words, another way to skin a cat.
If you might have already guessed, we're huge fans of green technologies and the protection and preservation of natural resources. Green is one of those terms that has different meanings to different people. Technology, fuels, recycling, solar, wind, fuel cells, and more can be lumped into the conversation. We try to talk in terms of what is achievable, sustainable, and fiscally responsible. But we're even bigger fans of pursuing clean technologies with the understanding that the green in your budgets, and the taxpayers' wallets are protected and preserved as well. So the first green is always the financial green. We'll always be an advocate for our clients to choose a path that results in a real return on investment in both environmental and economic terms. Moving away from petroleum-based fuels has many benefits. Fuel cost and future pricing stability. It may not seem like it now, or because over the past 2 months, we know that we've seen some moderation in diesel and fuel pricing, but no one is betting on $50 an hour barrel crude is here to stay. We're aware that world oil prices are being intentionally suppressed in order to reduce U.S. production. Adopting CNG still presents a 30 to 50% net savings on fuel cost over diesel. And remember, it's a domestically based and produced product. Compliance opportunity. The more expensive and threatening issue may be the cost of meeting the ever-increasing emission standards from the EPA on diesel engines. Clean diesel engine architecture is becoming more complex, and as a result, we're seeing a shift in favor of CNG in terms of overall cost of operation. Noise. CNG engines are quieter. Residents, patrons are usually thrilled when the diesel-powered collection trucks get replaced with much quieter CNG-based platforms. Longevity. There are numerous studies out showing that clean-running CNG engines run longer with less wear than conventional fuel engines. This has allowed clients to extend the service life of some of the vehicles by a year or more to help relieve some of the pressure on fleet replacement budgets. And public relations. Positive response from the community that understands that your community has embraced clean technology and is making a contribution in that regard. And finally, we're seeing cities and towns incorporate CNG as an economic development tool. Even if the community is not seriously looking at CNG, private businesses are. And so now you have an opportunity to create a point of light in your community that can be a real economic driver and engine. Let's move on. Challenges. We can't talk about benefits without also talking about the challenges. So we all know this as developers. How do you smooth out the capital infrastructure expense to allow CNG adoption to pay for it? Because ultimately that's what happens as we increase the fleet size, as we grow that, that's where the efficiency, that's where the cost savings is generated that can offset the cost of the infrastructure. And how do you identify and work a transition plan for your fleet that is economically viable? Let's look at how performance contracting can do that.
So how do we address the challenge of the capital cost? We believe that performance contracting is an attractive solution to help meet the need for capital dollars. So what is it? Well, it's a funding mechanism. It's been codified in the state of Indiana for 20 years or so. In specific to municipalities, it's covered in IC 36-1. 36 relates to cities and municipalities. It's just a funding mechanism that essentially says that any subdivision of a government entity can finance an improvement project if the savings that get created by that or additional revenues created associated with it exceed the cost of the debt. And that's the financing cost and everything thrown in there. And the savings have to be guaranteed by a qualified contractor. So the things that count towards savings could be, fuel, electricity, repair expenses, avoided capital expense. And then the revenues, as you'll see us talk about here in a minute, could include the sale of CNG to the public. So, oops, I went a little fast there. Before we go to the next slide, I think it's important to remember that financing can be done a number of ways. It can be done in the form of a municipal bond, a municipal lease, or even bank financing. And it can be incredibly flexible. Recently, we completed a financing arrangement with a client that is structured to increase their payments over time as their use of fuel adoption increases as well. So we were able to match the payment stream to the anticipated usage. So another nice attribute of performance contracting is it's considered by the state is that it doesn't constitute an indebtedness within the context of a constitutional or statutory debt limitation because it's subject to annual appropriations. Again, the simple concept is simply that performance contracting allows you to create adequate capital to execute a project, which then in turn improves the cost of operations enough that the savings repay the debt.
And then I might build on that, Rick, by indicating, again, we talked about the economic development aspect. So performance contracting provides flexibility in the sense that the community can utilize partners, reach out to contractor base, reach out to a partnership base in their local community if they want that level of participation. And so it tends to create that homogeneous effect within that community, which the mayors and commissioners like to see. Again, it gives us the flexibility of picking the right partners so that you're assured of the right result, and there's performance metrics behind that to ensure that the customer ends up with exactly what was promised and committed to.
Yeah, one of the nice things about these projects is, whether they're done under performance contract or otherwise, is they create great local jobs, and they're high paying. And they're in the construction field. They're nice jobs, which every mayor would like to have a few more of, I suspect. But you get to create them locally. The trick is always to get the project to go, and this financing is a means of doing that.
Which leads in, so what does a CNG fueling strategy, when does it make sense? And so there are certainly drivers that make it make sense. And so one is, do you have a core fleet of target vehicles for replacement or conversion? We kind of always talk about the 3 T's: trash, transit, and transfer operations are all good candidates because they're big engines, low mileage, and they travel a lot of miles in a day. So those are good target fleets to begin with. The other drivers is natural gas. Is there an adequate supply and proximity to a potential station site? So, one of the things you have to figure out is to make sure that you have a source. We're blessed in America that we have an extensive pipeline, but access to high pressure or reasonable infrastructure helps contain cost. So again, do your vehicles have a high run hours? Why are the run hours important? Because savings occurs when the vehicles are running. The more they're utilized, the more they save. Public safety can also be a great fit, but they require education and real-time experience with CNG. So in our experience, it's a developing market, but one that requires a proof basis. And so you're going to have to spend some time in the development. Some of the quickest successes have come from areas of trash collection, transit buses. In most cases, a small fleet, this is counterintuitive. You don't have to have a huge fleet to make the economics work. We can go with a starting fleet of between 10 and 15 of those types of vehicles to make the economics work. If you're talking smaller profile vehicles or cars, then we need to be thinking in the area of 40 to 50 or more to begin to make the economics work.
I think that, one of the things we ought to talk about here is the fact that some of the greatest successes have been in larger vehicles, but the sedans, the pickups, and, the police pursuit vehicles that you mentioned are really starting to come into their own. The issues of performance have gone away. Every law enforcement official that we've put into a car got into that car with a hesitancy or I think an expectation that the car would not perform as well as their gasoline models have. And obviously they rely on those very heavily to perform at optimum levels. But without exception, every one of them that's gotten out of the car has said, I like this. So I think that's something that people need to keep in mind as we go forward.
No question. The engine technology, large and small, has been a real enabler for this market, and so that is a change from past years and experience. If you remember this slide, we said that performance contracting can be a tool, and when properly applied, it can do many things. We talked about some of them directly. We want to take a minute to show you pictures of a potential project approach that could achieve multiple goals simultaneously. We invite you to think about the assets and infrastructure in your communities in a different way, one that pays its way through operational efficiency and sustainability, we welcome the opportunity to meet with you to evaluate the possibilities in your community. So, Rick, this is one that you spent some time on. I think it just points to a lot of potential. So,
Okay, yeah, and I'm glad you said a lot of potential. Mark and I tend to believe in the power of and. We think that you ought to be able to invest and save. We think that you ought to be able to help the environment and be fiscally responsible. We think that you ought to be able to reduce your operating cost and increase revenues, so allowing you to be a better steward of taxpayer dollars and the environment. So we believe that creating benefit for local industry and residents can be done at the same time. So we like this idea of having your cake and eating it too. So what we're going to talk about is a project that a city or a town could undertake that incorporates a fairly broad assortment of cost savings measures, creates multiple new revenue streams, and combined, a project like this could yield some tremendous environmental benefits, financial impact, and community well-being. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with a pretty simple little project, the conversion of all or part of a municipal fleet to from gasoline and diesel to compressed natural gas. So what we've depicted here would look like some of the vehicles we've talked about: trash collection trucks or public safety vehicles or something of that sort. So as a result of doing a project like this, you get a small financial gain reflected in the green savings box. You get a reduction in harmful emissions. You get a real win for the environment. And in our experience, you get some great goodwill in the community if you message this thing correctly. So let's think a little bit bigger. Let's make the station a little bit larger. Let's open it up to the public for use. We'll market it to local businesses who have or are considering converting fleets to CNG. We'll sign them up to annual volume agreements at a rate that's lower than they can buy retail in exchange for, priority access to the station. And out of that, you'll create a revenue stream of something in the neighborhood of $1 a gallon for each of these deals that you can land. So if we make it fully public, then selling to anyone who wants to fuel vehicles at market rates, retail rates, that'll yield another revenue stream of something in excess of $1. So for every vehicle then that converts to compressed natural gas or gets replaced when it's taken out of service, we get a positive environmental impact. We believe this model creates an incubator for local businesses who may want to convert their entire fleet, but do it slowly until they amass enough critical volume of vehicles that they can afford to invest in the building of a private, inside the fence fueling station for their own use. And we believe real strongly in this idea of economic development. We think that this adds a small but growing in importance, an element to your recruitment plan for new businesses. So maybe we've even created the opportunity here to defer a tax increase for at least a little while. So while we're at it, let's tackle energy conservation. Energy efficiency projects such as converting street lights to LED have a much lower cost of operation. While we're out there, we can add technology that allows dimming so that as the sun's starting to come up, we're saving even more money. In city buildings, we use a similar approach to replace aging, oftentimes failing systems like chillers and boilers with newer, higher efficiency equipment. Sealing up leaks in the building reduces energy consumption, drafts, customer complaints, that sort of thing. It improves the controllability of the occupied space as you update and upgrade the control system. So while we're doing that, we might invest in plumbing technologies to save in consumed water and wastewater. So overall, we've reduced the cost of operations in both utility and repair cost. And frankly, in one case, the one that you're looking at there, for example, we've improved the look of the facility to the point where the city uses it as a recruitment and economic development tool of their own as they bring businesses into the city to investigate.
As the next step, let's target what is usually the largest single consumer of electricity in a municipality, and that's the wastewater treatment plant. Between energy cost reduction strategies and the addition of anaerobic digestion, the resulting methane gas produced can be burned in a generator to create electricity. The electricity is used as the principal power source for the plant, and the electric use and cost from the utility are greatly reduced and possibly eliminated. So it's possible in some cases to take that plant off grid. We're working on projects in a couple of states right now doing exactly that. At the same time, the producers of feedstock pay a small tipping fee to offload their organic material, and the process creates compost and other products that can be sold. The environmental impacts are significant. Methane in place of coal-fired electricity is cleaner, and by treating the feedstock, it goes through a dewatering process that greatly reduces the hauling costs or disposal fees for landfill disposal. The elimination of the feedstock being spread in open fields reduces runoff to fresh water supply. So you begin to see how this whole this whole environmental cycle takes place. And then in place or in addition to using the methane products from the digestion process, the gas can be cleaned up to pipeline quality natural gas. But rather than turn around and use it for your own use, we can put it into the pipeline as green gas. Gas that is classified as renewable energy source can then be sold with a renewable identification number or RIN number. The RIN number has a monetary value that varies but is often equal to the market value of the gas. And because gas with a RIN assignment can only be sold as transportation fuel, our efforts are displacing petroleum-based fuels in other communities as well as our own. None of this is free. CNG stations, CNG vehicles, generators, anaerobic digesters, LED lighting, and HVAC equipment all cost money. But when wrapped under the financial umbrella of a performance contract, that cost can be offset or absorbed by monetizing future savings and creating new revenue streams. If the question formulating is your mind, why do I need performance contracting for this? Well, consider the alternative approach is to budget year-over-year capital appropriations that would build up and allow you in time to tackle these types of projects. But the likelihood of that happening is not high over multiple administrations and budget cycles. And there may be a compelling reason to pursue immediate implementation of this type of strategy.
Each of these individual projects have been done successfully. Many municipalities across Indiana, across the Midwest and beyond, using some form of performance contracting. And in Indiana, the requirement for compliance to the law is that a project creates savings and/or increased revenues that equal or exceed the cost of the project. It's the exceed part that can get really powerful. By combining the net savings of the multiple projects, the benefit starts to increase. We've talked about the power of and. When you start to the LED lighting and self-generating electricity, and you add that then to the revenue equation of tipping fees, compost sales, the premium price of green gas, you really start to multiply the positive impact to your budget. So enough so that a lot of the items that are on your wish list, the items that you've come into office hoping to accomplish and struggling to find the funds to do, they become more achievable. So things that improve the quality of life in a town or community. So projects like the construction of bike and walking trails, renewal and expansion of city parks, programming for the arts, or even a new technology to enhance public safety. We believe that all three can be achieved: cost reduction, environmental stewardship, and cultivating the community for life philosophy. So we don't know exactly what the net impact is for every town in the state, but we believe that we have an idea of how much it could be. So we also know that there's one way to find out. So we'd like to close with these thoughts. None of the math that we're talking about here is all that incredibly challenging. It does require, however, a lot of diligence and a great deal of commitment to get from a concept to a completed project. Because in truth, it is extremely difficult to get all three parts correct and in balance. And that'd be the technical solution. You know, what is it you're going to do and how is it going to work? The financial analysis, how do you justify the project? And then the third part, and we really haven't talked about it much here, but it's probably one of the more critical parts, is the communication of this plan and all of its benefits, both before you go into implementation and after. So we believe there's real leverage here in terms of the community and quality of life and citizen response. And we just think that element of this needs a great deal of care and attention. So I'll kind of close with the words of Zig Ziglar, who said, in order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear of failure. And it's our feeling that if you really desire that CNG and some of these other things are important to the future of your community, we're without fear that we can help you make it successful. So we'd really like the opportunity to talk with you and your team when that opportunity presents itself. All you got to do is reach out to us. And I think at this point, we're ready to open this up for questions. I don't know, Kelly, have we received any of those?
Not at this point. I'm just sending out a reminder that chat is open. Folks are free to live chat and we can relay those questions. If you would also like, you can email any questions to myself at Kelly, Kellie, at greaterindiana.com. And we can get those questions answered for you via email.
Yeah.
I'd like to take the opportunity while we're waiting for any questions to come in to thank Mark and Rick both for taking the time to put this webinar together and to present. I told them at the beginning that they were my guinea pigs for the first one. So I think they've done a wonderful job and I want to thank them and let them know how much I appreciate their effort.
Yeah, the good news is we won't do a survey on which one of us is guinea and which one's the other. But Kelly, I think the other thing we'd like to do is, offer anybody that wants to ask a question about any of this to, our email addresses are here as well. We'll answer any question we can for as long as we can. That's what we do. So don't be shy.
And again, another point is that Kelly, thank you. You've done a great job in laying the groundwork here with Greater Indiana Clean Cities Coalition. And so it's that outreach and the work that you've done that we think has created a model here in Indiana. So we really appreciate your leadership and support.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. If there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up this webinar. So that you are aware, it will post to YouTube in the next 10 to 20 minutes. And then we will also link that up to our website so that you can go back and refer to any of that information via our website at greaterindiana.com. Again, thank you for your time today. Be safe. Goodbye.